lawyer and my client murdered their whole family. I'm about to prove their innocence. I knew for a fact he was guilty. Since becoming a lawyer, I've seen a lot of disturbing cases throughout my career, but Jacob Cooper takes the cake. When I was assigned his case as a public defender, I actually thought it was some kind of petty joke by my boss. All the evidence proved without a shadow of doubt that Jacob murdered his whole family. The security footage from his closed-circuit network showed everything happening in excruciating detail. How he stabbed his wife first and then used a pillow to asphyxiate his two girls. It was disgusting, and I was meant to defend him? Little did I know that this video didn't actually show the full picture. Even though there wasn't any audio on the feed, watching the struggle his family put up to fight back was the most difficult thing I have ever had to see in my entire career. After reviewing the notes taken by forensics and talking with the DA, I was finally ready to meet my client, or as ready as I could be. The man in the waiting room painted a different picture than the one I had just seen on screen. He was trembling, his eyes darting suspiciously around the room. He was afraid. I didn't realize he actually had the ability to feel emotion after what I just witnessed on the videos. "Mr. Cooperall, I'm your attorney, Leo Ross," I said. He was acting extremely jerky and overly cautious when he replied. Thank God. I was starting to think this was a setup too. "You're not wearing a wire, are you?" No, I can tell. You're safe." "Good. Maybe there's still time." "Slow down there, one thing at a time." "Just what exactly are you talking about?" "I'm talking about my life, Mr. Ross. The state wants to lock me away for good, but if I do that, oh God, what will happen to them?" "You're not making any sense." "What will happen to who?" "My family. Dear God, I have to find them and save them." I must have stared at him for a good long minute before I finally answered back. "Mr. Cooper, your family is dead." No. That's exactly what they want you to think." "I'm telling you I'm innocent, Mr. Ross!" There was this dangerous, unhinged look in his eyes whenever he said this. I'm not quite sure why. Call it instinct or maybe those years of experience I touched on earlier. But when he said those 4 words, I wanted to believe him. I took out an audio recorder and sat down across from him. I asked him to explain in detail what happened that night. I was thinking his paranoia might get him to spill. I was so wrong. Instead, Jacob started telling me about how he noticed something was wrong when he got back from work. I don't really know how to describe it, but something felt off, you know? Martha was in the kitchen, my girls were playing video games, except, and this is the part where no one believes me, I know, that they weren't my family. I didn't say a word. I was too worried that if I did, I might freeze up the story he was giving me. They acted like my family, but I knew they weren't. Martha wasn't surprised about me coming home early. The girls didn't want to go to the park. They all just constantly had these blank expressions on their faces. I can't even describe it. "Stay on point, Mr. Cooper. What happened next?" He was getting more nervous with each second. I was afraid he might clamp up. "I went to go tuck the girls in and read them a story. They said they loved me when it was over, but I swear they were watching me when I left the room." "Then you went to your bedroom." "I went to our room and spoke to the woman standing there in my room. I needed to know where my real family was. She stared at me and refused to cooperate. That's when I snapped. You know what happened. I grabbed her and shoved her to the bed, demanding I see my real wife. You don't believe me, do you? I must admit that is quite a fantastical series of events. But if you want my support, if what you are saying is true, then I need some sort of evidence." My client looked desperate to provide me with some means of believing his insane conspiracy. And then a look of realization crossed his face. He pulled out a ring from his pocket and pushed it into my palm. "Martha's wedding ring. It didn't fit on her finger. The imposter, I mean. It was too small," he proclaimed as he was taken away. Something about his demeanor told me that in his mind he thought he had done the right thing. If so, then it changed everything about this case. So I called up a friend of mine that works at the county morgue to get a chance to see the bodies up close. When I got there, the 3 were nearly unrecognizable because of the way Jacob had beaten and brutalized them. This seemed more and more like a vicious and premeditated murder. Guy was pretty smart. Bashing the skulls in to break the teeth messes up the dental match. And then his wife's fingers. That just shows what a sicko he is. Her fingers? Yeah. The psychopath cut her skin off near the tip to avoid fingerprint recognition. I mean, if it hadn't been for the video surveillance, I wouldn't even know who these corpses belonged to. I fidgeted with the ring in my finger. "Can I try something?" "Sure, just be delicate. I got funeral services coming first thing in the morning." I nodded and tried to slip the ring on the woman's finger. It didn't fit. Could it be that somehow Jacob was telling the truth about this? "Did you check the girls for fingerprints?" "Not sure I see the point. They would be too young to be in the database." I decided to check the fingerprints myself, only to find the odd scarring at the end of the fingers, like they never had any prints at all. Someone had done this to cover something up. "Everything all right, Ross?" I slipped the ring back into my pocket. The room suddenly feeling a lot colder. "Yeah, I probably need to get going though." I knew something was up. I actually believed him now. Something about what he was saying is actually true. But I hadn't actually seen the original case files yet other than the summary I was given. So when I got back to the offices, I went straight to the evidence locker to find his case files. I found the section of the room with all the recent case files. His was near the top. But after 10 minutes of searching through his file, I found nothing interesting. I was starting to think maybe I was wasting my time. I moved to close the drawer in frustration when a box marked for shredding on top of the cabinet caught my eye. I spent the next few minutes reviewing that paperwork, and eventually a few stray images popped out at me. The paperwork had giant stamps all over them saying, "Tests canceled, funding impeded by FDA, candidates gone missing." There were photos of people being injected with something. Then there were others showing the same people being placed in body bags. I picked up the last one and saw a news article on a small clinic that was being investigated. and one name among the patients stood out immediately: Jacob Cooper. I slid the file under my arm and walked back out, making sure no one saw me. When I got back home, I looked over the papers. All over the papers, I saw the company name Luminaires. I knew something was up when I saw this. I had seen a report that this company was running a massive scam, but most of the reports got magically taken down off the internet. I now wish I had used a VPN to research this, but it's too late now. It seems their current project is a sleep aid for people that suffer from hypersomnia and daytime fatigue. On paper, it seems great curing that. But after doing some more digging, it seems the people going on trial were not returning. But after searching for more info on the dark web, it seemed that people said the drug made their symptoms worse. After a few hours of looking, I stumbled across a video titled Luminaires. I pressed play. I saw an 8-year-old girl in a living room, just standing there as still as a statue. Whoever was holding the camera called out her name. "Melody, sweetie, talk to me." But the girl didn't answer. I watched in morbid fascination as the girl picked up some of her toys and then used one and started to smash it against her face. The parent rushed to grab it away, and then another female figure snatched the girl up before she could use another toy as a blunt instrument. The girl started scratching and clawing almost like a wild animal. The parent started talking. "I don't know what to do anymore. She's been brainwashed ever since she visited that Luminaire's place and got given drugs." The clip ended and I started controlling my breathing, trying not to hyperventilate. Luminaires, of course, denied any side effects. They say they drug took away Melody's condition, and of course they have enough paperwork and lawyers to make it all perfectly legal. I knew I had to work out what was going on in there somehow, but they would never permit a police sweep without any evidence. So my only other choice? Go in there pretending to be a patient. I told my colleague Fitzgerald about my plan and he called me insane. But I made an appointment and completely disguised myself, buying colored contact lenses, hair dye, weird clothes, all to look like a legitimate patient. I knew this could go horribly wrong, but after perfecting a Boston accent, I walked into the giant building. "Can I help you, sir?" the receptionist asked as she adjusted her glasses. "Yes, my name is Johnny Craig. I have a reservation with Dr. Thornton," I told her. "Mr. Craig, this way, please," the receptionist said a few moments later, using her employee badge to guide me to another room. "Hello, Johnny, I'm Dr. Nina Thornton. I understand that you are interested in our new program," she asked as she began to check my vitals. "How long have you had your symptoms?" she asked casually. I gave her a generic answer and produced generic results. I had read enough of their testimonials on the website to know the right things to say. This is actually where I became extremely nervous. I knew now that the chances of this drug harming me were very high. It was meant to cause me harm so they could siphon money. I started to think of ways to get out of it and take the evidence I had back to Wayne. So when the nurse came in with my IV to give me the drugs, I lied and said I thought I might have an allergy. She frowned and told me she would page the doctor. I figured maybe if I just signed a waiver saying I was no longer interested, I could get off the hook easily. That didn't happen. Instead, Dr. Thornton came into the room looking concerned and holding a syringe with a needle about the size of my thumb. "Mr. Craig, I'm afraid there has been some sort of misunderstanding. My nurse claims that you're worried about an allergic reaction. I just wanted to assure you that Luminaires uses the best products on the market and there is little risk to you. Have you heard otherwise?" she asked. She was trying to be subtle, but I'm a student of body language and I knew that she suspected me of being a mole. It was clear that she didn't know for what reason I was there, but she was on to me. I relaxed in the chair and smiled nervously. "No, Doc, I guess it's just I wish I could meet some of the other patients you've had. Here's some success stories." Nina nodded absently and gestured for two nurses to approach my chair. Before I knew it, they were strapping my legs and arms down. "Hey, what's the big deal?" For all I knew, they had been monitoring the case and were now simply going to clean up loose ends. She plunged the needle in. I tensed up and I felt my body begin to jerk. "Listen to me, I'm refusing treatment. If you do this now, I'll sue," I stammered. The older woman paused at the door, giving me a look that was as cold as ice. "Well, it's a good thing that you have a good lawyer, Mr. Ross," Nina said as she gave me one final look and left the room. There was no denying it now. They were trying to unalive me. Slowly the medicine began to drip and slide into my bloodstream. I hate to even describe the experience of what their drug did to me. I truthfully at the time had no clue what the dosage was or what the intent was meant to be, but I felt like I needed to vomit or urinate all at once. I was in and out of consciousness at least 7 times that I can rightly remember. All I knew for sure is that I was convinced I was going to die here, and that no one would ever even guess why. Then, as I heeded another blackout, there was one shining ray of hope. I saw a figure moving toward the edge of the hallway. It was a man and he was raising his voice to the staff. Then 10 minutes later I found myself being escorted out of the room to a waiting area. Everything still felt like it was spinning at 100 mph. The man approached me and gave me a throw-up bucket as I lurched over and started dry heaving. "You are by far the biggest idiot I have ever met, Ross," a voice said as my vision started to clear. It was Fitzgerald, my colleague. "Please tell me that you're not a hallucination," I muttered. He slapped me. "That feel real enough?" I saw a sea of police and paramedics storm in the room. I might just have been saved and managed to actually prove that my client didn't do it.